Welcome, Star Trek and Mego collectors. And this is Kavora, and I'm here with Nayar, and we have our guest, Scott Brown.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're great. How are you?
Awesome. Everything's good. Everything's good. Thank you.
So, Scott, tell us about where you're from and how you got into Star Trek and how you got into Mego.
Okay. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. Star Trek and Mego, I think, came probably almost exactly at the same time. I can't even differentiate what was first. I do clearly remember my first Mego figure, Star Trek figure, was Captain Kirk. It was a T1 Captain Kirk. I remember I was excited when I got him because that's when the animated series was on. So I would get up, and I think it was after I think it had to be after it originally premiered because it came on like too early to be like an original run. It was like at 6:30 a.m. or something like that. I would get up and I had my little Kirk figure, and we'd watch the show, and then I'd fall back asleep. I think eventually, very soon after that, I think that Christmas or the Christmas after that is when the bridge set came out. And we got that, and I got the rest of the characters, at least the bridge characters, and Ahura and all that, and Klingon. That's pretty much how that went. And then, of course, I was watching the original series because that was in syndication on NBC. They would show that like Saturday and Sunday afternoons, and then eventually, as far as Star Trek concerned, the conventions and stuff like that. I collected comic books for a while, along with when I was a kid playing with Megos. I actually was a collector then. But so I mean, as far as aliens and stuff like that, I never even knew those were made till I was an adult. Surprisingly enough,
That's interesting because I'm the same way. I remember getting the dolls and then watching the show. So Mego was my gateway to a lot of pop culture items.
Absolutely. I think the Mego Batman and Robin had to directly come from, seeing them on Scooby-Doo directly. Those seem to go hand in hand together. And as far as Star Trek's concerned, you name it. I had the Remco, the phaser, the Star Trek belts with the phaser and the tricorder that slotted instead of, draped over your shoulder. Like, even as a kid, I was like, it's like that's weird. Why does the tricorder slot? But Spock wears his over his shoulder, but I guess what can you do?
But that's the charm of Mego and Remco, and any of the early licenses were kind of strange in their own way.
Absolutely. Well, everything, we take the backyard, and we'd have, like, being in South Florida, had a lot of coral rock, and there's always some project being, going on, because I kind of grew up in a very rural area, a lot of property. So there's always concrete blocks. We would make we'd put the blocks together and kind of make the world's largest Enterprise playset. This is before the playset actually came out, or before we actually had it. So we'd have, the figure set up, and that was supposed to be inside the ship and stuff like that. And then when the playset actually came out, of course, that's what we did there. I had a friend of mine he would actually fold the playset up and seal it together, and then he would fly it around the room, like that's how it flew, and then he would land, and of course they'd all get out, as if it was something like you could park.
That's an awesome memory. So let's break down the different. You mentioned the aliens because we know that Mego did create the focal point that a good amount of the bridge crew. They didn't make all of them, so we have Kirk, Spock, Uhura, Bones, and Scotty. But the aliens were the ones that most of us had a hard time finding. And as a child, I never had them. I didn't find out until my teen years that when I saw them in real life in the collector's shop. That was the dilemma for many of us.
Absolutely. And I think obviously everybody had Klingon. And I remember there was a toy shop in the town where I grew up. It was called Lollipop Toy Shop, and it had these two elderly English women, and they had a bunch of Mego. They had all of the Action Jackson, and I didn't even know. See, I didn't know that Action Jackson was also Mego. I just knew it kind of looked like it, but I didn't know it was the same company. I didn't put things together like that. But I do remember seeing like Keeper, and that's kind of like Baylock ahead with, it's kind of wearing a figure with a dress. I'm like, I don't really. And then the other one, I've seen the Talos figure. I remember seeing that guy. And I was thinking like, it kind of looks like a clown guy. So I didn't. Yeah, just didn't want him. But then I had no idea that they made Romulan as a kid. And what was great about Star Trek figures is they came with they had a phaser belt and a communicator, and like I said, in the tricorder, they came with their own equipment. That was great because most, it's like a lot of these, for whatever reason, man, like the LJN figures, they made like the rookies at SWAT and emergency, but they didn't come with any equipment. What good is a firefighter with? I mean, he doesn't even, or a cop doesn't even have a gun. So anyway, or Starsky and Hutch, where's the gun? But anyway, so they had the tricorder, the phaser. I was like, well, this is great. And then the Romulan, of course, he had a helmet. I was like, that's even better. If you got headgear, are you kidding me? That's a win-win across the board. But I never knew they made a Romulan. When I found out as an adult, I was like, oh, cool. And I went to go buy one. I think I went on eBay, and I'm like, what? I could buy a car for that. But I eventually got a bunch. I got them now. That's for sure. One of my best figures. As you're talking about aliens, everybody's got, it's like, well, how did Mego come up with this or why? And I just seen that Marty talking about on the Toys That Made Us, and they were talking about like the Mugatu figure. And you have to just picture what this figure looks like, to know this story. That's supposed to be the little ape creature, the little white ape creature with the horn on its head that attacked Kirk in Jesus, what was that episode called? What was that episode called?
A Private Little War.
Yeah. Okay, now the girl, the one that healed him, the one that healed him, but also kind of like, gave gave Kirk like the little love juice or whatever.
No.
Okay, exactly. So if you look at Mugatu, the figure, and if you look at what Yona was wearing, and if you combine those two, that's how you came up. In my mind, that's how they came up with Mugatu, because I'm picturing these guys trying to troubleshoot. Okay, well, we need some bad guys for Star Trek. What are we going to do? We did Klingon. We need some other ones. And this is like in the early 70s, man. So you didn't have, like, you can't go obviously on Google. There's no Google, so you can't Google like Star Trek, episodes like you just said, and say, oh, and here's what this person looked like, and get all these high res pictures. You had nothing to go by, but probably your own memory. And so here are these guys probably thinking like, oh, well, what about the monkey guy with the horn? Oh yeah, and remember, and he wore the bell-bottom pants with that hippie shirt. Well, they just kind of got the two cross-reference in my mind, and that's how they came up with this figure. And I actually have one of these figures that I got from a good friend of mine, Michael D. Giovanni. Just got it too. So I'm looking at it right now as I'm talking to you. So that's pretty much my take on that.
So it is kind of like some of the figures were not as close to what they were on screen. Like the Klingons didn't really look like the Klingons, but then the Romulan action figure looked just like the Romulans on the show.
Yeah, well, and see, and that's the thing. And again, like I attribute like a lot of that to just like a lot of it was just guesswork and also convenience, of course. They did what.
And I think the animated series, the Klingons look more like the animated series Klingons than they do the ones on the show.
100%, exactly. Because
kind of a blend of them.
Yep, and that's what I think too. Because not only is it a fresh, you got a fresh, vivid picture in your mind because you're seeing the cartoon that just came out like in 73, and the figures came out and I think that particular aliens came out in 75 or 76 or something like that. So that's something fresh in their mind. Again, you didn't really have and if you did have like fanzines, like what do they have? We had like Starlog, obviously, and stuff like that. If you were lucky, you got to see those aliens, but it's usually just like a little small black and white picture. They didn't do like a big feature on Star Trek aliens, not that I can remember anyway. Because you had like Monsters magazine, you had Starlog, you had, what else did you have? There was just a bunch. I would get them all.
Yeah, not as many magazines back then. I mean, Starlog and then later Fangoria, things like that.
Well, I remember that Monsters was probably, that and Starlog, my two favorites. I never missed an issue on that. Not when I was a kid anyway. I remember seeing and you even see, like the Mego ads and all that stuff. And I never had the later Mego stuff. I didn't have the Trekulator. I didn't have the, there's like a little Mego shooting gallery thing where Kirk.
Yeah, that's a strange one. We have that, and it's kind of weird. It's like you put Kirk in the chair, and there's a little electronic device that he watches.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Still, I mean, I would love to have that now. And I never even knew that Palitoy did just a transporter. I think that's pretty cool. And I thought, obviously, I thought it was extremely cool that Big Bang Theory, brought all this stuff back out to the forefront. That I actually got. I've got a lot of stuff. I got too much stuff. Some guy on eBay makes a mock Mego version of like the Galileo shuttlecraft, and that's pretty cool.
Well, what did you think about the Neptunian action figure?
I love Neptunian. Are you kidding me? He came. That was absolutely great, and that's one of them that definitely had to spring from the cartoon, because I think that's like a 100% original creation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's just something that they made and just put a label on it.
I mean, and of course now we know, I don't think anything can live on Neptune, but that's still, I mean, it was, what a great little concept, because he had everything. He had, that was the other thing. If you were a Mego figure and you had nice plastic glove, claws, and big feet and a scary face, you won all categories, because you could not be misconstrued other than being a bad guy. There's no way in the world anybody would be confused, because even Klingon, if you took off his Klingon stuff and gave him like a dashiki, he could be a beatnik for all we know. He's like, hey, he's not an alien, that's a beatnik. Neptunian, no doubt about it. Definite bad guy.
And what about the Andorian?
I have an Andorian as well. See, the funny thing is that like the Andorians that they always showed on the original series, they're always kind of like weak individuals, little God, what's the word for it? Little like little chihuahuas, little mousy type guys. Yeah, come and mess it up. But the Andorian that Mego made kind of resembles more like the Andorian that you've seen on Enterprise. Scott Bakula's show, the guys, you don't want to mess with him. He's probably going to punch you, He's a pretty tough little, guy. And of course he's going to sense what you're doing, because he's got his little, his little antenna thing. Again, another good conceptual move to know that you're a bad guy is if you have antennas. He's got antennas on top of his head. He's probably up to no good. Clearly, he's an alien. No doubt about it.
So, Scott, to wrap it up, why do you think that so many Star Trek fans gravitate towards having the Mego dolls in their collection?
It was the very first actual, true, no doubt about it, likeness of, again, as far as I can remember, of something that was a relevant TV show of the 1970s. There is no doubt about it that you can sit there and go out and get a Mr. Spock figure and a Captain Kirk figure, and you can recreate everything that you've just seen on that 60-minute episode of 1960s sci-fi. No doubt about it.
The Mego dolls came out right at about the time the show was becoming popular, so they both kind of fed each other, the show and the Mego dolls.
Absolutely, the syndication, the timing of the syndication, one of the first shows to be syndicated, the timing of that, the Mego's brilliance in having the figures released the way they did, the play set that tied it all together, because that's one thing, man. You can release figures of just about anything, but if they don't have some place for them to go or a specific thing for them to do, I mean, I got the Gamma 6 play set, which is the craziest thing ever, because that's part of the Apple, the big case. So it's part Vol, it's part, and then it's got the little like barrel of monkey aliens that come with it, and then it's got the little glove thing that it just doesn't make any sense, which makes it so great. And and that, so they had the Enterprise, they had the thing that they could travel in, they had Gamma 6 where they can go and see all sorts of groovy stuff and possibly get in trouble, and then find a Romulan or a Andorian and mix it up with them. I think all that tied together, hell yeah, I mean that's exactly why. That's exactly why we gravitated towards it. And it's almost, the likenesses of these figures are dead on accurate in my opinion.
Thanks for joining us on this away mission.
Please give us a 5-star review on your podcast app.
This helps others find out about us too.
We welcome feedback and comments. Drop us a subspace transmission via starpodlog@gmail.com. That's starpodlog@gmail.com.
Music for this episode provided by 5 Year Mission. Until next time, live long and prosper.